the biggest issue is as well, you're not controlling games. You cannot afford to have Harry Kane as your outlet when you're playing on the counter. That first game, who'd you play in the first game where you won 1-0?
Serbia.
Serbia. That was pathetic. I'm not gonna lie. You guys won, but it was such a pathetic game. Every time on the counter, I saw Kane being your outlet. Since when is Kane an outlet? You cannot have these type of players on your team and you're conceding this amount of possession. Yesterday, you need to understand this. Man of the match was Højbjerg. Højbjerg was man of the match against England with a midfield that has Rice, Bellingham, Trent. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. No one would get away with this. No one would absolutely get away with this. And this is why when we're talking about these things, there is major changes that need to happen in this team. If you want to keep Kane in this team, fair enough, because he's not going anywhere. Anyways, the tournament is still going on. What are you going to do to control games?
Mhm.
You need to drop big names in order for this to work. Are Liverpool fans ready for Trent to be dropped next game? I actually, if you don't mind, Terry, I would like to tell you what I think is the fix with this team, and then I'll have the chat. I guess give us their opinions and their thoughts on it. Because there's big names that need to be dropped in this team, and I feel like all these fan bases, because they all belong to different teams, aka Arsenal, Liverpool, United, blah blah blah. They're all gonna be like, no, you cannot drop my guy. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think they're willing to sacrifice this. And this is the 11 that I think they need to change and to go into it in with next game. Trent in the midfield does not work anymore. Kyle Walker needs to be dropped. You do not need Kyle Walker in your team with the way that you're playing football right now. Your goal right now is to control games. Trent being that extra guy inverting into the midfield, helping you control games. This is what you need to do. So you put him on the right, in right back instead of Kyle Walker. If you don't want to do that and you want to run Kyle Walker, that's fair enough. But then on the other side, Trippier needs to get dropped. Joe Gomez played as a left back all season. He inverts as a third center back very well. You could easily put him there, keep Gahey there, keep Walker there, but then you have Stones does what he does best, and he does for City, invert into the midfield. Now, when he goes into the midfield, he helps whoever exists there. Now you can get a double pivot potentially of Rice and Stones instead of what's his name, Trent and Rice, because that's a better pivot. And then you look at the midfield. You don't need Rice, Trent, and Bellingham in the midfield. There's no controls in this midfield. One of these guys needs to get dropped. If you want to drop Rice, or you got to drop Bellingham. And this is the biggest issue. No Arsenal fan in the right mind will say Rice needs to get dropped, and no England fan in general will say that Bellingham needs to be dropped. And that's where a sacrifice needs to be made. I don't mind Bellingham playing with Kane because he makes up for the lack of physicality that he has. And we've seen him with Madrid invade that space that they don't have a striker occupying. And he's been bagging all these goals and he crashes the box. You can keep him there. But then you don't need Rice in the midfield with Bellingham because you have no control there. You have Adam Wharton and you have Mainu. One of these two, which Mainu's a little bit better in the final third, and Wharton is better in the first third. You need one of these two there. But are these fans ready to what's it called? Drop one of these two? They won't. And one more big name. Sorry, Terry. One more. Foden and Saka. There's an issue there. I don't think, as much as I rate Foden, I don't think Foden fits the system. And this team is not built for Foden to play football in it. I think you keep Saka on the right, even though I rate Foden more than him, but you keep Saka over there, and then you bring in Eric Gordon. You don't is Eric or Aaron?
Anthony Gordon.
Anthony. I always mix him with this NBA player. I don't know why. Anthony Gordon. Sorry, the guy from Newcastle. You play him there because he's the most natural left wing you have in this team. So if you make these changes, that team significantly will look better. But then on the issue is now you're gonna have either a Rice, a Bellingham, plus a Foden potentially on the bench. And I don't think there's a lot of fans that are ready to accept that. And the chat, as I said.
Yeah, and listen, I think you're right in terms of that. We got to get our stars on the pitch mentality from sort of the neutral England fans. And then because they still won't understand the concept of best team over best players, which is still, I don't know how many shows I've said, what's Man United's best team? There should never be one. Horses for courses. And it shouldn't always be your best players. And I also I mentioned Mainu coming on yesterday. And you almost know when you see the comments, I see in this comment, Mainu isn't a controller. Well, I do think he controls the tempo of a game. I think that's what he does. And is he the finished article at 19? No one's claiming that. Adam Wharton isn't the finished article, but they're the only two that we have in our squad that can do a job of that ilk. And what Southgate said about them, that we don't have a solution for Phillips, what does that do to these young men's confidence? You brought them to the tournament and you're publicly stating we have no one else that can play midfield, but so we're trying to experiment with the right back there and it isn't working. Yet you've got these two young men. It's crazy what he said about them. But then when you look at the profile on the socials of the people that don't want Manu in the team, it's typically fans who regard Man United as a rival because their fear is Manu comes in, England look better and he gets praised, and their tribalism can't allow for it. And it's one of my biggest bugbears with England fans in general. And then you have people that support English clubs who don't necessarily like England, but understand where the issues lie. And I've said all along, I don't mind if it's Manu or Adam Wharton because I care about England, but one of those two needs to come into this team. Some players have got to be sacrificed. And it isn't because Declan Rice is rubbish. It isn't because Harry Kane is rubbish. It isn't because Foden is not a good footballer. People have got to stop being so weak to the banter that comes their way and understand it's about creating balance. And every team I've watched in the tournament so far, ironically, barring probably Scotland, has looked so balanced. I just watched Slovakia versus Ukraine. On paper, neither side has as good of players as England, but there's a balance that they're working in unison with each other. They all know their job because they're all playing in their natural positions. They're all playing in a system that gets the best out of all of them. This is a team sport. It's not boxing. It's not tennis. It isn't MMA where it's all about getting the best out of you. It's a team sport. And we are not a team right now. We're a bunch of individuals in so many ways. And the fan bases, the England fan base and the fan bases of Premier League clubs don't make it any easier because you can tell in their analysis, it's just saturated in tribalism and bitterness and this they're just praying. I hope it's City. I hope Foden's the guy that wins the game for us. You'll have Arsenal fans. I hope Declan Rice does it. I hope Saka does it. I hope it isn't Kane that wins it. I hope it isn't, Manu coming on and he starts to deliver and is. Why? It shouldn't matter if you support England. It shouldn't matter for a single moment, but it seems to. And I think all of these elements filter into dressing rooms. And England had this problem with the golden generation. And I was at Wembley many, many times where I remember sitting near a guy, Gary Neville was taking a throw in, and the abuse this England fan was giving him just because he was a United player. I've seen people abuse Liverpool players just because they're Liverpool players, Arsenal players, vice versa, depending on who I was sitting around in the ground. And I would look at them all and just think, you lot are mad. When I was first on social media like 10 years ago, I did this thing one summer where I went and bought an England shirt and I had Gerrard on the back. And I basically sort of said it along the lines of, I'm Man United fan, but I'm going to wear Gerrard because he's Liverpool on my England shirt. And I think all England fans should sort of do this, like pick a rival from a club you dislike at club level and back him for England and try and get rid of this weird tribalism. That tribalism amongst fans also used to exist in the dressing room. And all those ex-players from that golden generation speak of the cliques and the groups. So for me, it's a case of the fans are almost pushing in this bad mentality, this bad culture that hindered a 20-year period of English football because of club tribalism. And I thought Southgate got it absolutely spot on for about 4 or 5 years. We had the balance right, the togetherness, the tribalism went away. There's this, none of this, we have to play our superstars. We will play the best team possible. And he got it right to a certain degree. Wasn't a good enough manager to get us over the line. Now I'm looking at us and it feels like the England I grew up watching, which is full of individuals and cliques. And the manager is a really important part of that. But the fans play a role as well. Sometimes fans try and pretend like, oh, me saying something doesn't impact the team. The next minute they're saying they're the most important fucking people in football. Which is it? Are you important with a voice and power and control? Or are you just a no mark? And if you're a no mark, I don't want you to moan about anything that happens to you. It's either one or the other. You're either important or you're not. You can't pick and choose when what you say and do is important, in my opinion. And I think what we say and do in this era is more potent than ever because what we say and do gets into them dressing rooms instantly. And we know this, that the players speak about what they see, what they read. And they'll all go, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't impact me. But it certainly does. It certainly does, in my opinion, especially if they're doing badly, because it's human instinct to protect yourself. You'll get players that's like going, oh, look, all my fan base is saying this about me, supporting me. I might kind of push that narrative a little bit. I might say something that alludes to that in a press conference, because at least then I know there's a group of millions of people that are going to have my back, rather than maybe being a little bit honest. And I just think as an English, we're in a lot of trouble at the moment. But look, viewers, I'd love to get your thoughts and love to get your feelings on England and the Euros in general. The Trent hate is now out of control. All his fault. I don't think people are hating on Trent. Forget idiots online. Forget idiots. I think people are just saying, you know, it's not Trent. A lot of people are saying play Trent at right back. Just stop playing him in central midfield. But there we go.
Every time he makes a change, he takes off Trent and he brings on Conor Gallagher. Why is he not taking off Walker, putting Trent in right back, and then bring on Conor Gallagher? I don't understand why he brings on Conor Gallagher, by the way. I never get it. Every time I look at this team, I'm like, you know what? They need some control. Probably Wharton or Maynor coming on. I see Gallagher coming on. What is that adding to the team? Trent is not a like-for-like sub with Conor Gallagher. One of them is good on the ball. One of them just runs around and he's a pest on the pitch. So how is this a like-for-like substitution when you need to gain control? So you actually took out one more baller, aka Trent, who's very good technically, you know, and you kept on now got Conor Gallagher and Kyle Walker is there. And Kyle Walker doesn't offer you much on the ball anyways. The reason Kyle Walker thrives in City, even though he's been low-key washed recently, but people don't want to talk about it, it's because he has so many more technical players around him. And he doesn't have the same technical players around him in England, which is why it's back to my point, Terry. That super chat proves what I'm trying to say. Every time you're gonna call out someone to get removed from this team, get benched, blah blah blah, they're gonna be like, yeah, he's being sacrificed. Oh, he's being scapegoat.
Yeah.
Oh, he's being harassed, and
Yeah.
no one wants to hear. I can't do anything about it.
I completely agree, and I think it's all. It's not strange. I understand why people are saying what it is they're saying, but I think a lot of them are just completely wrong, completely off. You know, these things have to be discussed. They have to be put out there. And I think the last World Cup, yes, we went out in the quarters, but we had a good group stage, started the knockout stage as well. And everybody, oh, Terry, you wanted him sacked before the tournament. You were wrong. And I sort of said at the time, like in the joy of it, well, maybe I was wrong. But as soon as it ended, I was like, actually, no, I'm not going to let the excitement of the tournament and my it is desperation to win. I want my nation to win a trophy to come out, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But listen, viewers, give us your thoughts, give us your feelings in the comments section below. Make sure you like and you share this video.